All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Minnetonka Planning Commission. The Commission generally meets on the first and third Thursdays of the month. The schedule and tentative agendas can be obtained by calling the Planning Department or by checking the city website at minnetonkamn.gov. The Commission holds public hearings on land use applications. From a specific process standpoint, that means we make recommendations to the City Council on rezonings, subdivisions, conditional use permits, and amendments to the city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. We also make final decisions on site plans, signage requests, and variance requests, and expansion permits, unless these requests are part of an application that must be heard by the City Council. In that case, the Commission makes a recommendation, and the Council makes the final decision. The city notifies property owners within at least 400 feet of the sites, posts signs on the properties, and places notices in the Lakeshore Weekly News and the Minnetonka Memo. Any aggrieved party may appeal a final Planning Commission decision to the City Council. If you wish to appeal, you must submit a written request to the city within 10 days of this meeting. From a broader standpoint, the city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations are the city's best efforts to codify a balance between individual rights and community responsibilities. Individual rights are easy to understand. Community responsibilities are more subtle, but the idea is that we, as members of the community, agree to limit our individual rights for the common good of the group. The Planning Department, the Planning Commission, and the City Council are charged with managing the sometimes difficult balancing act. We ask you keep this broader perspective in mind as we review tonight's applications. Again, welcome. Staff, please call roll.
Henry.
Here.
Maxwell.
Here.
Minion.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Banks is absent. Hanson is absent, and Chair Sewell.
Here, there are 5 of us seated here tonight. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda and any changes to the agenda. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as posted?
I'll make the motion.
Motion Henry.
Second.
Second Minion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is approval of minutes from the January 9th, 2024 meeting. Commissioners, any changes to those minutes?
Just a question. I was a few minutes late and it says I was absent, but then later in the minutes it said Henry joined the meeting. So officially it was marked as absent in the front and just want to make sure that it was marked correctly.
Chair and Commissioner Henry, that is a good catch. We'll change that from absent. You were present, but you just arrived later and it was inexcused later. So yes, we'll make that change.
Thank you.
All right. Recognizing the update, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th?
I'll make the motion.
Motion Henry.
I'll second.
Second Minion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next is report from staff.
Oh, jumping ahead. Chair and Commissioners, the City Council did meet on January 13th. The only really Planning Commission related items on that agenda were related to reappointments and appointments to commissions. So first, the Council reappointed Commissioner Banks to the Planning Commission and Commissioner Waterman for terms running February 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2027. So another 2-year term. Second, then, the Council appointed Commissioner Hanson to serve as the Planning Commission representative on the Zoning Rewrite Community Work Group, and Commissioner Banks to serve as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission representative to that same group. So both of them will be getting more information regarding the work group and our kickoff date here in the next few weeks. And then finally, the Council appointed Scott Brink to serve on the Planning Commission beginning next month. Scott is a retired city engineer from one of our neighboring communities, so he will bring a valuable background and viewpoint to the Commission. That appointment was needed because, of course, tonight is Chair Sewell's last night after serving 8 years, 2 4-year terms. The Council's policy is that commissioners can only serve 8 consecutive years. So even if you wanted to, tonight is the last night. We wanted to put together some stats about your time here on the commission. So between 2017 and 2024, or today, you've reviewed 891 applications, 163 meetings. Those meetings accounted for roughly 330 hours of your time. So 8 work weeks, 2 months sitting behind the dais there. I would say that your 8 years have been really characterized by a reinvigoration of the Ridgedale and the Opus area in terms of development. In your time, there have been almost 3,000 multi-household units that were approved and are either constructed or under constructed. 27% of those are affordable, so that is above and beyond the city's affordable housing policy of 5 to 10%. We went and tried to choose a interesting project from each of your years, memorable for whatever reason. So 2017, iFly, first and only use of its kind in Minnesota. 2018, we had Shady Oak Crossing, which was really a unique collaboration between the city as property owner, the owner of what staff said was the ugliest building in the city of Minnetonka, great pizza but ugly building, and Ron Clark as the developer. Then 2019, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner. I should ask actually if you remember all of these. You may not.
Every one of them.
The ME's office is widely considered one of the most state-of-the-art, if not the most state-of-the-art facility in the nation. Then we had Ridgedale Commons Park, award-winning, multi-award-winning. 2021 was the year of Opus apartment buildings. We had Minnetonka Station, Doran, Wellington, and during that time, there were 854 units built in Opus. Of those, 150 affordable. The Momentum and Vantage building, built in 2022, one of the first, actually maybe the only new school building constructed in Minnetonka in recent decades. Walzer Kia, 2023, I'll just say Walzer Kia, 2023, and then 2024, the Mills Church and Habitat for Humanity collaboration. And during all of those meetings and through all of those projects, you've brought a very steady hand to the commission. As you all know, there's a lot of emotion in the room when we talk about development projects. Emotions from neighbors, emotions from people who are part of organizations for or against a project, developers who spend a lot of time and money and effort putting together a project, or property owners who are, quite frankly, trying to realize an investment in their property by selling their property to developers. And Chair Sewell, staff believes you were really able to manage expectations during that time. Everyone knew that their voice was going to be heard, and everyone knew that you would vote not based on the emotions in the room, that your vote would be based on fact and land use law and what you determined was best for the larger community. And so we've really appreciated that. We're grateful for your leadership, and we are going to miss you. I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And on my last meeting, I just want to thank a few sets of people. First being the city staff. Ms. Thomas, we went to the last council and kind of together presented on the Planning Commission for the first time, and she did a fantastic job. And I, again, for the 10,000th time, sang the praises of the staff. So professional and easy to work with, even when we disagreed. It was kind of like almost like a spousal relationship or a family member relationship, where it's like you care deeply about the person even when you disagree, right? But you somehow still make it work. And no matter what the commission felt, I always feel like you can accept it, and even if you disagree, you make disagreeing and civil discourse so much easier. And I think it's such an important civic standard to set these days. It's don't underappreciate how important that is. So I just want to say thank you to the staff, both current and former as well. Also with the council and the mayor always being supportive of the Planning Commission. Again, even if they agreed, disagreed, it doesn't matter. I always felt the supports of everyone from the city, which is fantastic. I would like to thank the public, those that came with constructive, positive, and respectful ideas, I always appreciate those. And there's a lot of times, I love nothing more than hearing a new perspective, like, oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about it that way, especially if it was brought in a positive and respectful way, trying to find the best outcome for everyone. So thank you for everyone who came and offered comments that way. The commission, both current and past, there's not a single person that I've worked with on the commission who I don't respect and appreciate and enjoy being around, those up here included especially. It makes it so much easier to spend, hours together, 330 hours together. That's a big commitment. That's quite a relationship. And if we didn't respect and enjoy being together, we probably wouldn't do it, right? Because the pay is not all that great. And then the final one is just my family for giving me the opportunity to do this for 8 years. And 8 years is plenty, so I wouldn't change that policy. Let's keep that in. But it goes by so fast. I couldn't believe, it's been 7 years for you, Commissioner Henry. I was like, what? I was going to say it flies by. So just thank you to my family, my wife and my kids for giving me the opportunity to do this and do something different. I never have done anything like this before, and what a great experience and what a great way to just meet new people in a way you never else would. So I just want to say thank you for everyone for that opportunity. So let's keep the positive momentum. I appreciate and respect the way this commission makes decisions and works with each other, and I have no doubt that they won't miss a beat. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. So with that, anything else to report from commissioners? All right, doesn't look like it. We will move along to consent agenda, item number 7. We have nothing. Moving on to item number 8, non-consent agenda items. Before we begin consideration of the non-consent agenda items, I'd like to review the steps in the process and the public hearing procedure that will be followed for each proposal. First, the item will be announced and the staff will report on the subject. The commission will then ask questions. Next, the applicant will be invited to offer a presentation or make comments. Commissioners may ask additional questions at this time. After the applicant is finished, the public hearing will be open to give anyone present the opportunity to comment on the proposal. I'm going to skip the other part because there's nobody here, so I don't even need to read the rest about neighborhood spokespeople and such. So the public hearing will then be closed. No further comments will be allowed. The commission will discuss the proposal and make a decision. The first item on the agenda is item 8A, conditional use permit for a veterinary clinic at 1809 Plymouth Road. And this is a recommendation the council adopt the resolution approving the request. Mr. Ingleson, good to see you on my last night.
I know.
Glad you could make it.
I came back just for you. I wasn't going to be here now. Thank you,
Love
Chair
it.
Sewell and Commission. So our next one is one actually all of you should probably remember. It's the old Wells Fargo redevelopment site. So it's one that you looked at back in the summer of 2024, so less than a year ago. So it's a property we're looking at. If you need some refreshers, here's 394, here's a Ridgedale Mall, and then Plymouth Road, which it is right off of. And the site the specific property we're looking at there is highlighted in red, but the overall site is 2 acres in size. It's going to contain 5 new commercial tenant spaces. As was approved, there was a vision to have 2 fast casual restaurants, a retail space, 2 retail spaces, and then also a bank. And so the one in red is where the proposed veterinary clinic would go. The site is flat and doesn't include any natural features, but is currently under construction. So if you go out there, it's not there now. It will be, though, rather soon. So here's another look at where that tenant space would be. We'll talk about this a bit, but here's where you would enter off of the parking lot. And looking inside that space, there is going to be an entrance here. Here's the reception area that you would walk in. There's 4 exam rooms throughout it. There's also a lab and pharmacy area. They'll have a laundry area, dog ward, which will be important in just a second, which for where the animal walking area will be, and where they'll go outside. Surgery, x-ray room, and then there's various other small rooms without the site that you'd expect inside of a veterinary clinic. The space, again, is 3,000 square feet. It is, tonight they're asking for a conditional use permit for a veterinary clinic, which is allowed as a conditional use within the planned I-394 district. The proposed tenant's actually new to Minnesota. Their name is Livewell Animal Urgent Care. They're a national veterinary clinic. Right now, there aren't any open in Minnesota, but there are other ones under construction. Per the applicant, they have ones that are under construction in Shoreview and Minneapolis. So we'll be seeing them more in the area. But right now, they're in other states, like in other cities: Denver, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington, Nashville, and Houston, Texas were the other ones that they noted where they have locations. So as we talked about, important for them to show where they'd be able to take these animals out if they needed to. So they're going to use a rear door here to the exterior where animals could go outside for walks if needed while they have their visits there. The applicant is not proposing to have any animals stay overnight, so they'd all be visiting same day, having procedures same day, and then going home afterwards. So it wouldn't be a long-term visit when animals come there, more of a quicker visit. Looking at the building elevations, the applicant has not proposed any changes from what was approved by the city back in the summer of 2024. So it's all going to look pretty much the same. You can see them highlighted in red here. The only thing that will change, obviously, is the tenant space. They will need to get a sign permit, but otherwise it should look very similar to what was approved previously. So after review, staff is recommending approval of the subject request for 3 reasons. First, the request meets all specific and general conditional use permit requirements for a veterinary clinic. Next, the proposed use would be harmonious with the existing uses on the property, but then also in the larger Ridgedale area. And then lastly, there is adequate parking for this use. So I was looked at before, and they have a rather large, they have a 22 space surplus, so that's also something that shouldn't be an issue. As this request is a conditional use permit, it is required to go to City Council. So tonight the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation on this item. With that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Sewell and the Commission.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Henry, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It shows that it was planned to be a retail space, and is a vet clinic considered a retail use, or would that be a changing designation to clinic?
Yeah, so that space that they showed on there, that was sort of an idea of how it would be used. For a lot of ways, we sort of consider it more of sort of service commercial type use, but considering retail, it still fits with what was expected out in the site.
Okay, so the answer is no.
Short answer is no.
Okay.
Is the animal walking area, do you know if that's going to be fenced?
They have not proposed it to be fenced, so
Okay.
I'm assuming they could walk other places too, as with anyone who's walking
Sure.
a dog, but that's where they plan to bring them out to.
Designated space for it. Okay,
Correct.
great, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Henry, you have another one?
Yeah, thanks. Another one is, since it's a vet clinic, is there any allocation for all the animal waste aside from the normal garbage cans? I'm not sure how that works.
One of the conditions of approval is to have a plan to show how they will take care of animals on site, but they have not provided any unique plans for where that waste would go. My assumption it would be also typical waste that anyone would putting in a garbage, but we will going to ask that question when it comes through.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, doesn't look like it. I believe we have the applicant on the line. If you'd like to offer any presentation or make any other comments, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I don't know how much we'll have for you, but I want to give you the opportunity if you wish.
No, I don't have anything to add. I just thank you for hearing us tonight, and just here to answer any questions.
Sounds good,
John,
thank you.
sorry, I'm John Deemer with One Corp. Sorry.
No, great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant, or I think the staff report laid out most of the details? All right, doesn't look like it, but we'll let you know if we have more in a minute. All right, we will
Thank you.
open the public hearing if anyone wants to come forward, if anyone sprints in the door. Doesn't look like they are, so we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments or questions? Otherwise, I would imagine we're probably all on board here. Anyone have any just comments they want to say about it, or? All right, this one probably could have been consent agenda. That's what a great job on the report. Drew, I'm disappointed that we can't have one where we disagree with you on this.
I was hoping we'd have one last
That's one
rodeo,
of my favorite
but
things is you'd always draw that short straw. You'd always get the ones where we would disagree. with
I
you,
usually
so.
chose the straw.
I don't. It makes it spicy. It's more fun that way. I had this vision for this redevelopment of being like kind of like a a restaurant hub. I'd kind of hoped for that, but again, I think this use is fine. Again, no one asked me what my vision is, and I'm not in charge of it, but I think it's reasonable. The parking demand will be relatively minimal. And so another veterinary clinic probably isn't a bad thing either. So any other comments? Otherwise, I think we're probably ready for a motion. Someone like to make a motion to adopt the resolution, to recommend the City Council adopt the resolution approving the request for conditional use permit for a veterinary clinic at 1809 Plymouth Road.
I'll make the motion.
Motion Minion.
I'll second.
Second Maxwell. Staff, please poll the commission.
I apologize. Henry,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Minion,
Yes.
Waterman,
Yes.
Chair Sewell.
Yes, motion carries, and this is a recommendation to the City Council to be heard on February 10th. Good luck with your development. All right, moving on to item number 9, other business. I believe, Ms. Thomas, you have these next few items.
Yes, Chair, and if you don't mind, I'll present 9A and 9B together.
Yep.
So the Planning Commission operates under a series of bylaws, and one of those bylaws is that you have to review your bylaws and your policies annually. And generally, staff reviews those on your behalf, makes a recommendation that you simply continue with those. This year, staff is suggesting the Commission make some changes. The first set are more administrative, the second is more substantive. So firstly, we're suggesting that you remove the term shall from the bylaws. It appears throughout that. The city is making a concerted effort to use plain language in all of our documents. In fact, staff, we just had a training on plain language this week. Shall is very ambiguous. It's very legalese. None of us, I would suspect, use that in our daily language. And so we're just saying you should replace that with must or will. The second rewording is embarrassing, quite frankly. The term planning department appears, and we have not had a planning department for over 20 years. We used to, and then that department became a division in community development. So updating that would be great.
I need an updated chair script because I've been calling it the planning department for the last 330
geez.
hours.
Thank you
So
for
let's add
pointing
to the
that out.
embarrassment to that. So.
Thank you for pointing that
Oh,
out.
no, I didn't even realize it till just now.
Nor had I. The more substantive change is intended to provide just some greater flexibility in the date of your elections and your review of the bylaws and policies. Currently, the bylaws say that you need to perform all of those tasks the first meeting in March. And because of that rigidity, there's really no provision for situations like we're going to find ourselves in at the beginning of February, where we'll have a vice chair, but we will not have a chair, and technically can't have a chair until a permanent chair, at least until the first meeting in March. Similarly, if the chair or vice chair needed to permanently vacate their position in the middle of the year, we technically couldn't have an election. So we're suggesting just removing the specificity of that first meeting in March, and instead note that the elections will be held annually, special elections can be called at any time, and the bylaws will be reviewed every calendar year. For policies, we're also proposing suggesting some administrative changes and then a few substantive. These policies are really intended to assist the Commission when you're considering what is reasonable use for variances and expansion permits. And they assist city staff too when we are advising potential applicants on what the Planning Commission generally considers reasonable use. The policies, however, they're policies, they're not ordinances, they're not binding, but they do provide for some consistency. And if you've been on the Commission for 8 years, you know we have not updated them in form, language, or substance for 8 years, and actually for 20 years. So tonight we're proposing a full reformat. It really, the reformat just mimics the City Council policy book. If you haven't seen that, it's online. The council also has policies. And then updating the wording to reflect our internal writing guides. Substantively, staff looked through the Commission's previous discussions on policies where you chose not to change your policy but said we might want to think about that in the future, and then looked at your approvals of variances and expansion permits, and that's where these substantive changes are coming from. So first, as we are suggesting you have some general policies, there are 4 that we would suggest. First, that reasonable use doesn't necessarily mean maximum use. I've heard you say that. Staff says that pretty frequently. Second, intrusions into setbacks should be limited to the greatest extent practicable. We usually call that a point intrusion. So, third, preservation of mature trees and vegetation will be considered in the review of variance requests. And that neighborhood character will also be considered in the review of setbacks and expansion permits. The next substantive change is your policies currently say that a 2-stall garage is considered standard, but that the maximum size for a 2-stall garage is 24 feet by 24 feet. We're suggesting a change to say that a minimum 24-foot by 24-foot garage is considered reasonable. And secondly, that the size and location of that garage or addition and its intrusion into the setback will be considered relative to other situations in the neighborhood. So, in one neighborhood, a variance for a 3-stall garage may not be appropriate because all of the other homes have a 2-stall garage. But in another case, if the majority of garages are 3-stall garages, a variance may be appropriate to achieve those. And then finally, the last change relates to front porches or covered entries. We're suggesting that you simply note that these have minimal physical impact on the surrounding area, and almost 100% of the time, one of the findings is, though it doesn't meet the setback measurement to the property line, it meets it to the road itself. And so just calling that out. I quite frankly can't think of a variance for a porch that has been brought forward to this commission that hasn't been approved, and quite frankly on the consent agenda. So those are the changes that we would suggest that you make, but any others or excluding these, I would turn it back to the chair and commission.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments on these?
Will you just speak a little bit on the minimum garage size, 24 by 24? Is there value in saying a square footage instead of calling out, or just kind of the thought process about how that came to be?
Chair Sewell and Commissioner Minion, 24 by 24 equates to the general measurement for parking stalls in our community. Typically, staff has pointed out square footages in the reports. So I think it's 546 or 526. There's a 5 and a 6 in that square footage. And so we would call that out. But 24 by 24 is something that most people can visualize versus just a square footage.
Just wondering if we're boxing ourselves in by saying that size, or if it's better to keep it open, but just looking for your advice on that.
And Chair Sewell and Commissioner Minion, just to reiterate, these are just policies to kind of set a minimum, if you will. In no way does the commission have to follow their policies, but it just provides for some consistency.
It's a starting point. Good question. Any other questions? Otherwise, comments? I totally agree. I couldn't think of a single front entry or porch that we've ever turned down. And we've had some discussions around them. In fact, we've probably, I don't want to say wasted time, but spent time that we probably didn't need to discussing. So I think that's a great time to. We haven't had one lately, but I think that's an important one, measuring it from the road, not the property line, because that's what everyone feels. So I think most of these make sense, but yeah, Commissioner Maxwell.
The one that really speaks to me is the reasonable use does not necessarily mean maximum use. And I think this one, we all know that, but I think for the applicants, this will be helpful to have it laid out. And then for us to be able to point to something, say, look, just because you can fit it doesn't mean it's really the most appropriate use for that site. So I appreciate having that one added in there.
That's a great point too. That's one hopefully that will help influence and guide developers going forward. So I agree. Any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Waterman.
I mean, I just generally appreciate this rewrite and rework. I think especially those general policies are ones that are so obvious looking at right now that we, kind of taken for granted. But it's nice to just bring it together in writing, just to see it in one place. So, and really appreciate all the other rewrites that add a lot of clarity. I think this is going to be helpful.
Sounds good. So I think we probably need a motion. Can we do both these in one motion?
I would suggest, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Chair, before we make a
Yeah.
motion, just like to add one more comment.
Please
too,
do,
where in my teaching and sometimes in my daily life, I do use the word shall. So I shall miss the word shall,
shall miss it.
in this one.
You
Thank
shall
you,
still be
Shal.
able
I
to use
appreciate
it.
you.
We shall note that in the minutes.
All right. I think we're probably ready for motion then. The motion would be to approve the changes in the bylaws and policies in items 9A and 9B. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion Waterman.
I'll second.
Second Henry. Staff, please poll the commission.
Henry,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Minion,
Yes.
Waterman,
Yes.
Chair Sewell.
Yes, motion carries. And this is a final decision by the Planning Commission. If you wish to appeal this decision, you have to do so within 10 days of writing of this meeting, but please don't. All right, moving on to item 9C. Do we need a report on this, Ms. Thomas? Or
Chair Sewell, I wouldn't report on it. I would just note that because you just changed your bylaws, now you are able to
Well, how
hold an
about that?
election before Chair Sewell vacates his seat, so that in February we're ready to go
Ready to
and
go.
to have someone to sign resolutions and things like that.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And this was my suggestion, just as it'd be a lot easier than having everyone show up and kind of, I don't know, are you? Is it me? Like, just to make it a little cleaner and to help the new planning commissioner as well. Is it all right if I do things a little bit backwards here, Ms. Thomas, in terms of like having discussion first and then doing nominations? Is that okay?
Absolutely. I apologize. I
No, no.
put that on your
don't
the
apologize.
dais just to help through that motion process, but
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, so I'd like to just talk through. So I'll start this. This is always like, as the chair, probably the hardest thing to go through because there's the least structure to it. But I'll start by: is there anyone who wants to be the chair, who has a desire to be the chair? All right, not seeing hands go up. I know Commissioner Henry, you've got only a year left. Commissioner Hanson has even less. Commissioner Minion hasn't been on the commission for a long time. And so there's kind of dwindling down to two. So I'm going to lay this out. Commissioner Maxwell, I know you wouldn't like to, would you be the chair of the Planning Commission? This is a chance you get to weigh in, and I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, Chair, I am willing to be the chair. I'm looking through my schedule for
Okay.
the next year to see, like, I could not commit to being here for every single meeting, but I'm willing to serve as the chair
Okay.
when I am here.
All right. That's good to know. That's hedging your bets a little bit there. Commissioner Waterman, what is your desire and availability to serve as chair?
Yeah, it's funny how we can't talk about this kind of behind closed doors. Generally, I kind of like my existing role, just for scheduling reasons. I don't have a particular desire to be an officer, but recognizing, if there are other folks, especially people who've been on the commission longer, that would want a shot at chair or vice chair, maybe in another year things would change. But happy to step in if essential.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like, you can, I would say, work with Ms. Thomas if attendance becomes a challenge, especially for you, Commissioner Maxwell. But I think you're probably the best choice right now, in my opinion. I'm going to comments. So if someone would like to make a motion, we'll start with chair. Would someone like to nominate Commissioner Maxwell to serve as chair of the Planning Commission?
I'd like to make the motion.
All right, so nomination by Commissioner Minion. And let's see, any other nominations for chair? Doesn't look like it. I'm going to declare the nominations closed. So we've got a motion to nominate Commissioner Maxwell as chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Henry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Chair. All right, next is Vice Chair. Commissioner Waterman. Vice Chair, I don't know how many times the Vice Chair has had to step in. It's not very often, but
Chair Sewell, I think perhaps maybe once this year, but then you ended up showing up. So it's not frequent. I would say that, just at the Sustainability Commission the other night, it just so happened that both of our chair and vice chair happened to be gone, and so then we had to, Commissioner Henry knows we had to roll with something, and it worked just fine, and any and all of you would be certainly able to conduct a meeting in the event that whomever is chosen as the vice chair is
and
not.
because of the update to the bylaws, this can be
Correct.
revisited at any point in time.
Correct.
So we've got that flexibility now too. So would someone like to make a motion to nominate Commissioner Waterman as vice chair?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I'll
Motion
second.
by Commissioner Henry. I have a second by Commissioner Minion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Vice Chair Waterman. All right. And final order of business is nomination of Sustainability Commission Liaison. Seems like a pretty straightforward one. I feel like we just did this like 3 weeks ago, but I assume are you still enjoying being on the Sustainability Commission? It seems like that really is kind of a passion of yours.
Oh, I do. It's a fun time.
That's great. Thank you again for serving as that role. So I think we're probably ready then for someone like to nominate Commissioner Henry as the
I'll make that motion.
Sustainability Commission Liaison. Motion, Minion.
I'll second.
Second, Maxwell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you again, Commissioner Henry, for serving in that role. All right, moving on to item 10, adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by the future Vice Chair Waterman.
I'll second.
Second by the future Chair Maxwell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good night. Thank you.